Okay, good morning. Welcome back to our school year. We are super excited to have everybody here with us back. It's nice to see some faces again and to feel energy in buildings these last few days as we've been out and about. So we'll just start off by saying, like, wow, we're really sorry to schedule this session first thing in the morning for you on your first day back, because it is not a gentle landing. Which is what we always want to do for you. But just with the schedule this year with consultants and other things going on that we couldn't move around, this was the best time for this session. So thank you for being caffeinated and ready to roll and engage in some serious cognition first thing in the morning. We really appreciate it. We wanted to meet with everyone who has been using JumpRope and talk about some new expectations for this year. As most of you may be aware, this is our first year having JumpRope 100% SU-wide K-12 in all schools, all grades. So we're really excited about that as a supervisory union, because it allows us to have a consistent platform and really deepen the work that we've already started around calibration, common proficiencies, bringing the GRCSU into alignment with each other in terms of what we're teaching, how we're assessing it, and what we're doing if students are struggling and or are ready for challenge. So this is a really big first step for us. The board has been super excited about it and super supportive of it for the last few years as well. We got a little delayed with the pandemic and thought that our timeline was going to be a little bit earlier, but then, you know, we had other priorities to take care of. So we have, but now we're back and we're ready to move forward all together lockstep in this. Some people did ask me questions in the last couple of days about, you know, JumpRope. I heard there was conversation about whether we were going to stick with JumpRope or change JumpRope, or what was happening with the future of JumpRope. And so here is the 30-second advertising pitch for that. And that is that we have not found a better product than JumpRope on the market for proficiency-based grading at this time. We continue to kind of like look, Greg and I in the background informally, we're kind of always keeping a pulse out for software, because we know that there are some things about JumpRope that are a little bit clunky and just not as user-friendly as we might like for both the family student end and also the teacher end. So we continue to look, but at this time there is nothing that is so exciting that we're like, ooh, we have to stop and think about this. So for the foreseeable future, we expect that this is where we will be until and unless some software programmers develop something that is even easier for you to use, takes less time, and provides families and students with the same high quality information on proficiency-based scoring. So be excited about this work, because we're here for a while and we want to dive in really deeply. In the agenda, I think you should have had a link, but I will drop it here in the chat too, in case you don't. We've been working this summer on a unified set of expectations for JumpRope, because what we've seen is that different teachers are using it differently. Different schools have been using it differently. Some schools, especially our northern schools at the elementary level, have only been scoring at the proficiency level instead of the indicator. Other schools and even teachers within those schools have been using it as a gradebook. And what we heard last 2 springs ago now, I did a series of focus groups. You may or may not remember them, but I did focus groups for parents and teachers after school around proficiency-based grading in the GRCSU. And one of the clear pieces of feedback that we got from those school-based focus groups was that parents and students were not getting a unified experience in how grades and progress were reported to them. So it made it a little bit confusing for parents and students to understand what the expectations were in each class, because they were slightly different in different classes depending on who the teacher was. And that's never the way that we want students and parents to feel. We want them to feel like they understand how their child is being scored. They understand what those scores mean, you know, that teachers are using it the same way because we've come up with the best way that we can understand and get on board with together for how we think that scores should be reported. So this work is an effort to try to move us closer to that direction, but it's going to be a shift in practice for some people. And so we wanted to be very clear about it right from the beginning of the year and give everybody a chance to understand it and spend some time talking about it. So this expectations document that we just shared in the chat with you and that you should have in the agenda, really talks about what it is that we'd like to see teachers entering and how we'd like people to be using JumpRope this year. So for habits of work, we want them entered for each course or content area. For K-6, we're going to focus on ELA and math right now for habits of work. And for K-6, we're looking 2 times a month that we're going to update that information, and 7-12 weekly. And of course, all of these are formative level. And I should say even in our document that these do not impact the overall score. Just so that you're aware, because we're keeping, again, in proficiency-based, we're keeping habits of work separate from academic mastery, because the proficiency score is supposed to tell us what the child understands and is able to do in their academics. The habits of work is what are they able to do as a student, and what do they bring to that process in terms of responsibility, effort, personal efficacy. So habits of work include homework and classwork. Again, you're not entering every single assignment. All you overachieving perfectionists, please stop right now. You're not entering every assignment. I'm just going to say it one more time, just so that you hear me. You are not entering every single assignment because there is no reason to do that. So please think about this as grouped scores. You could have a weekly homework grade, a bi-weekly homework grade, weekly classwork grade, bi-weekly classwork grade. Think about it in a way that makes sense for you and the content that you're teaching, but do not enter every single assignment. 7-12, there is a new rubric that all of the Corey Valley administrators have agreed upon for habits of work. It is linked into this document. I'm sure your administrators are going to share it with you also. So please use that for scoring for habits of work. We are going to work on a consistent elementary rubric as well over the course of this year, and try and have that in place for the fall. But we'll convene a committee over the course of the year that's going to work on that at the elementary level. So I would say for now, our helpful tip for you, whether it's as a school-wide or within your own classroom, establish a rubric with families and with students, with students right now, and share it with families, just so that students know how they're getting scored on habits of work, and that you're clear about it, they're clear about it, and families are clear about it for the upcoming year. I see there's some chat action and I don't have it open. Content, yeah, math and ELA, thank you. Yes, so 7-12, you're going to use the same habits of work for your specials, and those are your courses. So when we say course or content area, that means that is your course. So you will have a habits of work grade for your course. And we're talking about elementary teachers who teach all the content areas instead of doing ELA, math, science, and social studies. We're just focusing on ELA and math right now. But for anyone who teaches any other subject area, every single course will have its own habits of work score. Yeah, that's great, Kayla. We can definitely use some of that and build upon it. Yes, Zach, even K-6. Yep, it's just, we're just talking about, that's just guidance for the elementary teacher in the classroom has those 2 content areas. But for your courses, every course will have a habits of work grade. Okay. So we broke down formative assessments because JumpRope, again, is scored formative and summative. So these are things like, and these are examples. They're not meant to be an exhaustive list. They're meant to be examples for you. Things like checkpoints, work samples, teacher-created quizzes, exit tickets, running records, observation checklists, the kind of formative data that you're using. And we, again, want to record a minimum of 1 or 2 weekly in each major content area or course. And we should have at least 3 total before a summative. Again, that was a lot of feedback that we got from students, families, and teachers in our focus groups that we did 2 springs ago. A lot of times it was unclear to people why, if a student performed poorly on a summative and they went back and looked in their records, then they would see that the student really hadn't had a lot of formatives before the summative that would have let the teacher and the student know that the kid was off track and really not ready for the summative assessment at that point. So we want to make sure that we've got a couple of checkpoints before a summative for every kid. I know in some 7-12 schools, the students are not able to take a summative until they have performed on multiple formatives to get ready for that summative and have shown the teacher that they're ready. So on your journey toward proficiency-based learning and developing these pathways for kids, you'll be somewhere along that pathway. But please make sure that we're creating multiple opportunities for students to demonstrate where they're at before they take their final performance in a course. Summatives, again, end of unit curriculum-based assessments, summative projects or performances. And again, ideally there should be more than one summative measure for each indicator by the end of the course. And again, this is feedback coming back from students and families. Like, if I only have one opportunity to demonstrate proficiency in an entire semester, and more for the upper grades, on a particular proficiency, because there have been no other assignments for me that I can use to demonstrate proficiency on that standard, then we're also not giving kids the opportunity to build on cumulative skills, cumulative review, to take what they're learning and apply it to more complex texts or situations. And we really want to think about how our curriculum spirals like that. So not every indicator, we're not saying every indicator, but we're saying for those core proficiencies, those non-negotiables, the absolute major skill sets that kids need to have in your courses each year, we should have multiple opportunities whenever possible for them to show off what they can do in those areas. Overall JumpRope expectations, please update it once a week, at least. And if a student is not reaching proficiency, if you have 3 scores in a row on habits of work or formatives that are below proficiency, please reach out to the family and let them know. Or if there's a summative that is below proficiency, please reach out to the family and let them know. It's really important that we're communicating with them to tell them that the kid's off track before it's too late for them to get involved and do anything about it. One of the easiest ways that we can do that is ensuring that families are able to log onto the JumpRope system. We are sending out information to administrators, or we did last Friday. So we've always known students can log into the JumpRope portal and parents can have them log in and can see exactly what the student can see about their scores. But there is also a way for parents to get their own access code to JumpRope. And so we have administrators and front office staff are the only people that have the access level that they can set up an access code for parents. So that's why we've shared the information with them. But if you have parents reaching out to you that say, my kid won't log on for me, or whatever it is the case, that they can't figure that out at home, we have another way for them to be able to access that information. And so just reach out to your building principal or your front office staff, and all we need to do is have the parent's email address, which comes from Infinite Campus. It has to be in Infinite Campus for us to do it, but then the front office staff, they can literally just click a button and the parents are automatically emailed an email from JumpRope with their own access code that they can use to log on. So we want to make sure, so especially by parent conferences, if you have any parents who you're feeling like they're going to really need to be more involved in supporting students, please make sure that they know how to do that and check in with them about it, especially if students aren't doing well. And elementary teachers, I know we hear all the time, well, the student's a 2, but they should be a 2 at this point in the year because we've only just started covering this content. And, I don't want their parents to be nervous about them not being a 3 yet. That's where those comments come in for assignments. And we can really use those, just say student is on track for this time of year, right? Student is making appropriate progress for this time of year. That's all you've got to do in those comments on the assignments, just so that families and students can know, okay, I'm a 2, but that's right where I'm supposed to be right now. And it's not a problem for me to be there. If you have any issues with JumpRope functionality, just submit a tech ticket, please. And if you have questions, if you're like, I have this assessment that I've made, and I'm not really sure if this should be in JumpRope as a formative or a summative, that's a great thing to bring up with your GRCSU-wide affinity groups. And we're going to be meeting monthly again this year, or even just sending out an email to your colleagues in your grade level or your content area and saying, hey, I have this, would you put this in as a quiz or as this assessment? What do you think? Formative, summative, where does this fall? They'll be a great guide. And your coaches too, of course, can help you think through specific assignments. But, we know our colleagues, they know our content, and they've got a really good handle on helping us figure those things out. I remember as a teacher, sometimes if you had a really big quiz, I'd be like, how am I scoring this? Final scores in JumpRope should be entered into Infinite Campus at the end of the course or the year, and scores should reflect or match JumpRope scores in all cases, and ask your building admin for a specific process for your building. So this came out in a couple ways, but at the elementary level, a lot of times the front office staff are doing the final entry for you, and they're manually inputting that last JumpRope score into Infinite Campus for you. At the high school level, most of the time the teachers are doing that. Every school has a slightly different process, which is why you should check with your building admins to see how that gets recorded. But what we did see this past year in our work with the transcript development is that upon occasion, there might be an individual student who in JumpRope, the scores reached a certain place, and perhaps the student did a whole bunch of work at the end of the semester trying to demonstrate proficiency. The teacher may have never gone back and actually recorded it in JumpRope and just adjusted the grade in Infinite Campus, or something like that. But then, 2 years later, people move on, things change. All of a sudden, there's questions about, why does this score not match? There's no comment in JumpRope that tells us what happened. And so we need to make sure that we're really clear on those things for families, because we're telling students and families that you can log on to JumpRope at any time and you can see how your kid is doing or how you're doing in a course. And so we need to make sure that there's 100% correlation between those two things. So if a kid gives you a lot of makeup work at the end, we need it to go back into JumpRope so that that final score matches what's in Infinite Campus. If there is ever a case where a teacher feels very strongly that JumpRope score needs to be overridden, that there's something in JumpRope that is it's just a mismatch for where the student is with proficiency level, first you need to notify your building administrator, and then you need to have a meeting or a conversation with the parent and the student to be really clear on why you feel that way. And there needs to be a comment put in JumpRope for that assignment that varies, or for that course, for the override, that very specifically articulates why there was an override, what the purpose, what the reason was, and the decision-making process behind that, so that if we ever need to go back and look at it, we're able to do so and to understand what is there. And yeah, hanging on to student work. This has come up a couple times too, where if there's a student or a family who challenges a course grade, it's really important that we have some kind of evidence that we can go back on. And in JumpRope, when you enter the assignment and you tag the indicators, like that gives you the score. But it doesn't, if you go back 3 months later, like, are you going to remember the exact details of that assignment and that student's performance on that assignment to talk about why you gave them that specific score? I would struggle to do that as a teacher unless I had a rubric, a copy of the assessment, something on file that gave me more information that I could use to have that conversation with a student or a family. So we recommend pictures. They're super fast and easy, or scanning documents. And we really recommend having kids do that in their PLPs and having students be responsible for getting copies of significant summative assessments into their PLPs. We're not worried about the formatives. That's not as important. They don't weigh as heavily in the scoring in JumpRope, as you know, and we're not going to have an argument with people over a formative grade. But summatives are important, that we have some kind of record, or the students have some kind of record. So just think about what makes sense for how, what you think you need to hang on to, or what you could have the kids be responsible for documenting. If you're using Seesaw, especially at the elementary level as a PLP platform, it is the best, easiest way, in my opinion, which is why we continue to pay for the subscription for a second year this year. It really is a great way for students to document work, quick, easy photo uploads, and you're done. So, or uploads from Google Classroom. So couldn't be simpler to get documents up in there. And if you're struggling with that or trying to figure out, again, like what to keep, what not to keep, again, talking to your affinity groups, talking to your administrator, or talking to your coaches, they can help you think through a simple process for that, because you don't want it to take a ton of work for you. And summatives, it's not that many, so it really shouldn't be a gigantic body of work. But just think about if you need to have a conversation in 3 months to talk about why you've scored a student in a particular way, what kind of documentation are you going to need to have on hand to be able to have that conversation with families. I'm going to stop there for a minute, and then we're going to take questions. And or Corey, is there anything that I missed?
Yep.
That you want to?
Couple things from the chat. We will be updating the JumpRope. We have 2 resources. We have a module, a step-by-step guide, and then a help center that kind of goes beyond the basics. We will be updating those to include things like how to add comments, which is something that we've not really used a whole lot at the elementary level, and to include for teachers how to ninja into a student portal so that you can teach parents how to use it at a conference if they still need help, and then a video to share with parents on how to use the student portal and all of the things that they can see within the student portal. And then Zach had a question of just questioning, why are we using 2 programs for scores? Why are we using JumpRope to score and then in turn using Infinite Campus?
Yeah, it'd be really nice if those 2 systems talk to each other the way that we want them to. The functionality gets better and better all the time, but it's not quite there. So Infinite Campus is the system that produces our transcripts and is the final record keeping system for our kids. So their cumulative record, all the formal information about them is stored and housed in Infinite Campus. Right now, we can't get JumpRope to automatically send the final course score into Infinite Campus. It just doesn't work that way. So it's the only piece, just the 1 score per child that has to go in at the end of the course or year right now. And I mean, Milt gives them feedback on it every single year. So hopefully at some point in time, they will figure out the programming pieces that make that happen automatically. Just not there yet.
Other questions? Barb asked a good question about do K-6 have to enter JumpRope scores into Infinite Campus? And I would just say it's varied by school. So just check with your front office staff. I think in most schools, the front office staff takes care of that for you.
At the elementary level, that seems to be what they do for the most part. Secondary has been different.
And then Megan pointed out that she doesn't have any classes yet in JumpRope, and we are working on that, making sure that everything is in there.
Yep. Megan, the most important contact for you to have with that is your building administrator and your front office administrative assistant. JumpRope pulls directly from Infinite Campus. So it is whatever the administrative assistants have in Infinite Campus is what gets carried over. So if there are problems with the scheduling that they've done in Infinite Campus, then you'll see the problems on the JumpRope end. But they are the ones who do that work, and they are the ones who can fix that in the scheduling system. So you just may need to alert them that your courses aren't in there or aren't appropriately rostered. And they need to go into their back end of Infinite Campus and take a look at it. And they know to reach out to Milt if they have any problems with that. He's super great at helping them with those things. Yep, same with Lexi and Dreambox, Aaron. Everything comes out of Infinite Campus. So we have to wait on the administrative assistants to get that all up and running. But Al is like, everything is rostered. He's got things ready in the spreadsheet. He just has to wait for the scheduling to be appropriate in Infinite Campus to pull it in.
Kayla asked a really good question about multiple scores within JumpRope. So the way JumpRope works is you have 2 different levels of scores. You have your formative assessments, which are worth 1/100th of a point. Simply because formative assessments are really intended to inform our instruction. They're not intended to impact a student's overall score, but JumpRope has to have some number, so we make it as low as possible. Then our summatives are worth a whole point. And the way JumpRope works is it works on a decaying average, and your most recent scores are going to be weighted more heavily than previous scores. So your scores are not completely wiped out throughout the year, but they're certainly weighted more as they're current, and they're weighted significantly less the older that they are.
Great question. So big picture for those people who like to understand, like, what's the big umbrella and then how does all these details fit underneath it? We are using JumpRope as an online gradebook, if you kind of wrap your brain around that as a system. So that's the online record keeping system for scores and grades for students. And then previously, some people were using JumpRope as a report card generator, where they were only putting in the final score, the proficiency level for kids at the end of the marking period. So we're no longer doing that. It is now the online gradebook system, which is where it's been for 7-12 the entire time. But we're now moving that K-12 for everyone. So we're going to offer today for anybody who is, because we know some elementary teachers have already been using it that way. But for anybody today who needs some support in creating an assessment in JumpRope and tagging indicators to that assessment, we are able to stay on, walk you through that, and give you some time and support, live support, to help you do that. If you are already very comfortable in creating an assessment in JumpRope and tagging indicators to it and scoring it, obviously we don't want to waste your time. It's the beginning of the school year. We're all super busy. So if you know how to do that and you feel really comfortable with it, that's great. You go right ahead. You can start setting stuff up for yourself if you'd like to with this time and get your first few assessments in there and ready to go for the year, and sign off and take care of what you're doing. And if you want some assistance with that, we can stay here and walk you through and provide that. Corey, is there anything else that we wanted to go over before we let everybody go?
I just wanted to point out that in the description of this session, I linked a document with JumpRope resources, which now has the expectations linked to it. It has 3 different areas that you can go for training. I will say that JumpRope's Help Center is pretty expansive as well, or feel free to reach out to myself or any of the coaches. And then in addition, I linked, for the schools that use Bridges, I linked some templates that when I was in the classroom, I had played with a little bit. Bridges provides you a really nice template spreadsheet for individual assessments, and they kind of break it down by question, and you put the score in, and then it tallies and tells you what the student's overall score is. It's color coded, and tells you if the student met JumpRope's benchmark, or not JumpRope, excuse me, but Bridges' benchmark of passing the assessment. And what I had done for each grade level was I went through and identified which questions lined up with which indicators, so that it then pulls out those questions, tallies the score for that indicator, and tells you if the student met the indicator or not. Just because I found using Bridges and trying to take an overall score and put it into multiple indicators, it took so much time. I don't have anything like that for programs that the other schools use, or for like any of the ELA programs, but I'm happy to work on stuff like that. So as you're doing this and you're finding things are feeling really bulky and cumbersome, please reach out. I love working with the spreadsheets and coding things and trying to make that work. So let me know if the Bridges stuff is helpful, and we can always try to do that kind of thing in other content areas and with other programs. And Catherine, is there an opportunity to have a coach come to our school and work with a PLC to set this up at the elementary level? Yes, absolutely. And Chelsea, here is the link to the document that has the training links and the Bridges links to it.
Yep. Corey, do we have that document on the website too with our modules?
I don't, but we can put it on there.
We'll put it on there. So we're trying to store like that. If you've gone on the coach's website in the last month or so, you've seen the really tried to revamp that, streamline it, they've pulled out things that were more specific to like remote and hybrid learning, and have kind of warehoused those in separate places and tried to make sure that all the modules and the information that's on there is like really current and relevant for the work that you're doing. They're up to over 140 modules at this point in time, and have really tried to, they've got a table of contents and other things that make it easier for you to sort that information as well. So hopefully that'll be a little bit easier for everybody to use and find things.
And we might just put a JumpRope page on for this year to make it super easy to find. That just might be really helpful. So
we should. That would be a great idea. Great. Catherine, how soon does this go live? Yeah, it's they're going to start putting it in newsletters and letting families know that it's out there. I mean, obviously people know that the first couple weeks of school, you're not going to have any major summative assignments. So for the most part, so maybe in some of your higher level AP courses and things. So just, continue to communicate with families. I would say you guys communicate with families on a regular basis anyway. So probably you should just let your families know when you're caught up and ready to go with JumpRope, that, anytime in the first 3 weeks is reasonable for you to start getting things in.
Kayla has a question.
Kayla, go ahead.
Hi. Yeah, I was looking at your spreadsheets that you just linked. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So I think Amy made something like that too. I was wondering if it was the same thing, or are you saying like if for quarter one we give a unit 1 and a unit 2 and a number corner assessment, let's say, will it pull the data from that proficiency from each of those assessments?
So these documents will have the proficiencies from each of the assessments, but then you're going to have to manually enter those into JumpRope. And they would each be different grades. So you yourself are not going to look at an indicator that's measured in unit 1, unit 2, and number corner and average those. You're going to put them in as 3 different assessments within JumpRope.
Okay, so because in the past we would just, when the grades were due, we'd look at all 3, but now we're going to, as soon as we give it, enter it. And then when we give another one, enter that one.
Yes.
And they'll be kind of weighted or averaged however they work in JumpRope.
Yes. And I will tell you that in the long run, like when you first start doing it, it feels like a lot, it feels cumbersome, but as you do it, it becomes a lot easier. And come report card time, you don't have to do anything.
You're done. Right.
The grade's are already there.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Great. Any other final questions for folks before we go into that demo of assessments and indicators? Barb, go ahead.
Hi, welcome back everyone. So I'm switching from 6th to 4th grade, and when I was teaching 6th grade, I had like a math section and a science section, but now that I'm teaching all of the grades, it doesn't appear to be set up that way. So I guess I'd like a little guidance maybe at another time, but like to separate my different core like classes.
Yes, I'm glad that you mentioned it.
Together.
I'm glad you said that. It's coming. It's a work in progress. We actually emailed all of the administrative assistants for your buildings last week and asked them to make sure that when they put them into Infinite Campus, or if you're already in Infinite Campus, that they go back and break out your schedule into those core courses.
Okay, so that's typically,
yeah.
It's typically set up like that for elementary school teachers too then.
Yeah.
It has not been, but it will be this year. So please do not go in and create your own courses. You probably have one course right now, which is your grade level. So Barb, this probably says 4th grade.
Yeah.
They're currently working on updating it. So you will have a 4th grade ELA, a 4th grade math, a 4th grade science, and a 4th grade global citizenship.
Awesome.
So just give them like to the end of the week to try to get that out there. But please don't create them yourselves.
I was just thinking that would be hard to keep everything organized if it's all just lumped under like a 4th grade umbrella.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
We were thinking the same thing.
Thanks.
Danielle, go ahead.
I just want to be clear. So I don't go to JumpRope right now, put classes in and add students. Are the students going to be added for us as well? Yes. Okay.
Everything
Cool.
should be done for you.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, and it takes JumpRope about 24 hours sometimes to cycle it over from Infinite Campus. So if your building administrative assistant is saying it's done, like you may just need to give it another day for it to pull from Infinite Campus into JumpRope, and then you should see the changes there. Courtney, go ahead.
For elementary too, for schools who've used it in the past, we've also always had a course section for habits of work and for transferable skills. How would you like us to set that up this year? Are the habits of work going to be within the ELA and the math, or how's that going to look?
Yes to both things. So as you're doing habits of work every other week, and it's going to go right inside. So you'll have an ELA habits of work and a habits of work. And then transferable skills are going to be the same thing. So as kids are completing assessments, take a look at your transferable skills, and kind of, pull one, I think that's work that will take time. So I think our focus is really on the core content areas, academics, habits of work. Understanding transferable skills are super important, but we're just not fully there yet. So just as you see them, pull them in, maybe make note of it. And that would be great conversation to have at affinity group PLCs on Wednesdays.
Okay, so I just wanted to make sure the habits of work are going to go into the ELA and the math. It's not its own separate section anymore.
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay. I think we're going to take the last 10 minutes of this session to give a little walkthrough for folks, for anybody who needs support in creating assessments and or tagging indicators to assessments. And anyone who is already proficient in that, you are welcome to get going on your own. And we look forward to seeing everybody at 9 a.m. for Katie Novak. Thank you for your time today. And again, for your work in this area. We're really excited to finally have everybody on the same page across TRCSU and to start really rolling forward together. So thank you so much, and we'll see you later on. Corey, do you want to screen share, or how do you want to?
Yep. I was just going to give people a second to leave if they didn't want to hear me talk. And I think I have a sample assessment that I'm trying to find that I may have used with the Southern schools. I do. All right. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I have an assessment from the Bridges Math Program 3rd grade that I just put in some fake scores for using the spreadsheet that breaks out the scores by indicators. So in this unit, the students were scored on NBT 1, NBT 2, and OA 8. And so what I'm going to do is going into my gradebook, I'm going to go to my plan tab. And the first thing that I'm going to do is make sure that I have my indicators pulled. So I'm going to go up to create to my indicators, and I am going to sort out my 3rd grade math standards. And just remember, as you're sorting standards at the elementary level, remember to click elementary as well as your grade level. There are some standards that you can see like the modeling standards, which I think we've had a habit of not fully scoring in the past, but those are just tagged at the elementary level. So we are looking at NBT1, NBT2. So there's NBT1, NBT2, and then I want OA8, which is down here in functions. And once I've selected those, we'll click select and it will add them to my indicators over here. And now I can go in and create an assessment. And we're going to call this Unit 3 Summative. And a reminder, units are a great way to organize your assessments for you to easily find them within your JumpRope account. So this is an end of unit assessment. So I'm going to select summative and we're just going to put today's date. This is where JumpRope identifies your most current dates for that decaying average. So making sure that you put the correct date in is important. Once I have filled in all of the necessary information over here, I'm going to come over here and tag my indicators. So it was those 3 indicators. I have NBT1, NBT2, and then OA8 right down here. And I'm going to click save. And now you're going to notice it over here. I have a couple old assessments that I did. Here's my Unit 3 and my Unit 3 summative. If I click on my Unit 3 summative, it's going to pull up just the indicators I tagged. So if you can't remember what indicators you tagged to that assessment, you can just click on the assessment and it's going to show only those indicators. Then to grade my student, if I just click down here at grade, I am going to minimize. So I'm just looking at my Unit 3 summative right here, and I would enter their scores. So coming back here, I see student 1 has met on all 3. I will tell you, for those of you that don't use JumpRope, or not JumpRope, but Bridges, the downfall to Bridges is that they don't give students a chance to exceed expectations. And then student 2, let's go down, we'll do student 3. Student 3 is approaching in NBT1 and NBT2 and meeting in OA8. So we'll put those scores in here. And that is the quick version of how to enter your assessment and tag your indicators and then to grade it. So you can see it really, as you get used to it, it does not take very long to start entering grades. And this was a summative. Your formatives are probably going to go even quicker because typically on your formatives, you're scoring like 1 indicator, maybe 2. Questions, or is there something that people really want to see? I know we have a second opportunity to come in and look at JumpRope this afternoon, but with 5 minutes left this morning, is there anything specific that you want to see? If not, you guys are welcome to take 15 minutes before our UDL training if you'd like. You don't have to stay on, but if you want to stay on and ask a specific question, go ahead.
I'm talking with my mic off. We have those open sessions this afternoon too, if anybody wants to jump in.
Yeah.
Thanks, Corey.
Let's stop this.